Okay.
All right, here we are with another live lined up for you. These webinars are a source for you to connect with people who are working in the industry, who give you, about the tidbits about various businesses, different kind of roles that you can get into, and much more. Today, we are here to help you out with your VAT PI journey during your B School admission process. A dedicated hour-long webinar is what we have planned for you. And this webinar will talk about, how the world of sales and marketing is evolving and what can you expect to perform in the time to come. And to do that, I have with me these 5 Reckitt leaders with me today, who you can see on your screens. They're all seasoned professionals. They have worked, for years to build profiles, to build brands. And these are the very people who have worked on the growth story of brands like Harpic, Lysol, Dettol, Durex, and a lot more. They will be spilling the beans about the constantly changing world of sales and marketing careers and how you could be ready for it. So sit tight and enjoy the conversation. Ask the questions that you have, solve your doubts, and don't forget to watch the very conversation that we're talking about today till the end, because we have a little surprise plan for you guys, which is going to further help you in cracking your dream B School. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. And I will start off with very little small brief introductions from these faces that you are seeing on your screen. So I will start with you, Vishal. Let's hear it from you.
Hello, hi everyone. My name is Vishal Sharma. I lead Insights and Analytics for Reckitt Healthcare South Asia. Been with Reckitt for about 2 years now, and I've worked for about 11 years before that in the same industry on Insights and Analytics across multiple businesses, multiple markets around the world. Very happy to talk to you all today and looking forward to the discussion.
Great, lovely. Shweta, we'll go next to you.
Thank you very much. Hi everybody, good evening. Pleasure to be here. I'm Shweta Dogra and I work as a global brand director on Harpic and Lysol. And I've been working in the FMCG space for over a decade now, which makes me sound old suddenly when I say that to all of you. I've been with Reckitt for over 6 years now, and previously I was working with Unilever and I started my career with ITC way back in 2009. I look forward to an engaging session with all of you today. Thank you.
Lovely. We are not making you feel old, Shweta. You yourself are. Okay, moving on. Kirtiman.
Hi everyone, I'm Kirtiman. I've been with Reckitt for almost 3 years now. So I lead digital marketing for Durex. I also lead the CRM practice for Reckitt India. And I'm really excited to share what I've learned till now. Thank you.
Lovely. Good to hear that, Kirtiman. I'm excited to hear some Durex stories from you for sure. During this conversation, I'm sure there is much in store. Okay, Vaibhav, what about you?
Yeah. Hi guys, I'm Vaibhav Pandey. I am a telecom engineer. I did work for a couple of years in the banking industry, and then I decided MBA is the way to go. I did my MBA, and then I have been a homegrown talent with Reckitt. I've been working now into my 11th year with Reckitt. Like Shweta, I won't be discussing my age, but yeah, I'm old enough as well. So been there, done several roles, have had an extremely good journey, and we'll talk about more as we go along.
Lovely. Good to have you here, Vaibhav. Last, I'll move to Ankita here. Sohini was supposed to be here, but she couldn't make it. So Ankita is here. And Ankita, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. So hi everyone, my name is Ankita Chakrabarti. I have been with Reckitt now for close to 5 years. And I've done a few roles across HR business partnering, talent management. Right now, I'm looking after the talent acquisition portfolio for the South Asia business. Yeah, looking forward to a fantastic conversation.
Lovely. Brilliant. So as you can see, we have a digital marketing expert here. We have a global brand marketing manager here. We have a regional consumer market insights head here. We have a regional manager for sales here, and we have the talent acquisition manager. So this is a cocktail of, profiles, I might say, for you to understand how this entire process works from the very beginning. And that's exactly what we are going to do. Ankita, I will start this conversation with you with the sort of taking an idea as to how COVID has changed the entire consumer perception of an organization, of a brand in a big way. What are the sort of changes that you have seen in the last couple of years, and how do you describe this evolution to be?
Thank you so much for the question. I think there has been a fundamental shift in the way organizations operate these days after the entire COVID, last 3 years that we saw of COVID, 2.5 years of what we saw of COVID. This dynamic shift is actually changing the way we do business, the way we, talk about topics like work life. We talk about topics like well-being. We talk about topics like flexibility. These are no longer very fringe topics as it used to be a few years from now. They are at the heart of everything that we are doing now. And Reckitt, of course, as an organization, one of our compass elements is actually putting consumers and people first. So I don't think there's any better organization that can do it in the way that we do it. For us, care is at the core of everything we do, be it in our policies, be it in the way we tackled the COVID wave that we saw last couple of years. And for us, I think this entire journey has been about bringing the Reckitt community together.
Right.
We operate as maybe we were a community, but it takes you that extra little nudge to maybe get there. And I think COVID for us was one such experience. And it has been, as an industry, it has been a dynamic shift. But I think within our organization and within the way we now talk about some of these important topics, there's been a dynamic shift. And I think this shift is here for a longer time. It's something that's here to stay.
Perfect. That's a right way to start this conversation, and that gives me a segue to go to Vishal. Vishal, you have been working on fields for a long time. You know the market well, and you have seen the kind of drastic shifts that has happened on field, right? According to you, how would you say that the consumption pattern and the trends around when we're talking about sales and the consumption of goods or facilities or services that people have in India has changed throughout these years, as Ankita was also mentioning. And, because the market penetration that is happening at a massive scale, because a lot of these companies are going to, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities, and, in the villages, people are accepting products. What are some of the strategies that have been used, and where does the future for sales in India lie?
Sure, Paul. To your first question on what are the kind of shifts we are seeing from a consumption standpoint, I think volatility has been to the extreme in the last couple of years when it comes to growth of certain categories. We've seen categories like hand sanitizers become 100-fold plus in terms of consumption, and then we've seen even categories like liquid hand washes, etc., double in penetration, right? So it's been a very volatile time, and there are three broad trends that emerge that we've seen in this particular time. So first one is just the whole explosion of preventative care when it comes to health and hygiene overall, and overall well-being as well, whether it's preventative care, immunity building. We've seen all of these self-care for all of these categories go up significantly. And we've seen a bit of a correction as the COVID waves went down, but the levels at which these are stabilizing is much higher versus the pre-COVID levels. So some of these habits are here to stay. Now, the second big trend that we see in all of this volatility was people going back to their trusted solutions. So people are looking for familiarity of solutions, or even if there are new ideas that are rooted in traditional solutions. So for example, the natural ingredients based solutions or even the trust on yoga and other Ayurvedic solutions to help achieve immunity and well-being shot up significantly. One of the manifestations of this one was also the people going back to big trusted brands. So less experimentation with brands and going back to familiar trusted brands was another big trend that we saw. The third big trend, like you mentioned, was the growth in non-metro geographies, right? So we've seen town class 1 showing FMCG growth 5 points higher versus metros, and rural and rest of urban growing 10 plus points faster than metros. And this particular growth was driven by traditional trade as a category growing much faster. Modern trade is still recovering from the discontinuations of stores that happened during COVID and then the subsequent build back on sales. But traditional trade as a category driving this, the average number of categories stocked in rural, the consumption of consumers adding new categories to their consumption led to all of these growth in rural. So these are three big trends. Some of, like, a lot of them are here to stay for some time at least. And one of the strategies to a specific question on rural growth and non-metro growth, there are three big levers that we look at when activating strategy on how do we sustain this growth, right? So the first one is just from a physical availability standpoint, what's the go-to-market structure and strategy that enables us to make our brands, the physical availability of our brands much wider on the footprint on these geographies. Right. The second one is from a portfolio strategy, what is the right offerings we need for these consumers to stick and continue and repeat the category consumption that they have newly added to their baskets. And the third one is from a mental availability or an awareness building standpoints. What there were like some of these dark spots when it comes to reaching some of these cohorts, and how do we get better at that, right? Even for that matter, including the adoption of penetration of digital as a means of building awareness and information, that also grew significantly during COVID times. How do we leverage some of that also from an awareness standpoint? These were a few strategies that we typically look at.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Vishal, for that elaborate answer. There was a lot to learn from there. And, from sales, I will jump directly to you, Shweta. You've been a brand manager. You said that, you worked with marquee companies and brands before as well. When we say a global brand manager, global brand marketing manager, what exactly does that mean and what do you do?
Okay. I'm so happy you're asking that question. It puts a lot in perspective on the day-to-day things that we do. So on a serious note, as a global brand marketing manager, what I do is that I lead innovations here at Reckitt for a couple of brands globally. And globally, of course, then we are segregated into clusters and there are teams that look after that, but it's really a global mandate. And hence, beyond just, the incrementality of learning about more heterogeneous consumer clusters, it's a lot of cultural learning, diverse kind of people, etc., right? And that is one significant shift from what I've been doing in the past, which were largely India-led, brand management assignments. So what I do right now encompasses essentially innovations. But if you look at what a brand manager's job really entails, Paul, and before I deep dive into that, I want to share, two nuggets with everybody on this call, because I have to tell all of you, given your, aspiring MBA aspirants, right? When I joined campus, I almost ended up doing investment banking. And as luck would have it, that didn't work out. This worked out and I couldn't have asked for anything better. And hence, I think most of us on this call kind of appreciate and empathize with some of the dilemmas that are there, at this stage. But you should trust your instincts. And I'd like to share what I love about marketing after having spent a decade of doing it, before I tell you what we do. What excites me about it is the fact that it is possibly an equal left-brained and right-brained profession, which means that as much as there is a lot of right-brained, creative understanding, how do you ladder from observation to insight, and really the magic of things, there's a lot of very logic, analytical, data-driven, information and decision-making that happens. And I think it's that balance that I enjoy personally a lot. So for those of you who'd like that and are not really a big fan of either possibly, where magic and logic come together. I think that's where great marketing happens. Now to quickly answer, what do marketers or a typical brand manager do? So at the end of the day, it starts and ends with the consumer. We're here to understand the needs of the consumer, in most cases unstated, because as they say, consumers don't know till they get what they needed, really, right? And hence it starts with the consumer, really, and hence what is she doing, why is she doing it? So really unpeeling the onion, because people never state why they do something. It's really about unpeeling the onion and asking the right questions to kind of understand why they're doing what they're doing, right? So it starts with that. Then you create tailor-made product propositions for that. You create communication propositions for that. So innovations, communications, media planning, fish where the fish are, really. Who is your bullseye TG? How do you reach them? What are they consuming as content, whether it's TV, digital, the works, etc. Right? So I would say there are these 6-7 facets. Then, of course, engaging with our sales team. Pandey makes for a very difficult custodian on that front for us brand managers. But really, it's licensing with multiple functions, right? As you would imagine, product development, essentially R&D leads. But how do you feed in with the relevant consumer insights? There's media, there's innovation, there's licensing with trade, etc. So I think these are the 5-6 dimensions of what brand management really entails, and that's pretty much about it.
Lovely. And why is it difficult, Vaibhav? As Shweta was mentioning, how different do you think sales have become during the pandemic? You've seen it all of you guys have seen it. I would like to hear from you, and what sort of strategy shifts took place, to make sure that all the 4 drivers of growth that Vishal was also mentioning, Shweta was also mentioning some time back, make sure that that keeps on going.
So from a sales point of view, obviously a lot of things changed during pandemic and newer ways of functioning started. I don't want to dwell too much on what Vishal anyway touched upon, some of the behavioral patterns that changed on a consumer side, because that was obviously an aftermath of what happened in the biggest of our categories, which was Dettol, and followed by the portfolios. From a sales perspective, what changed was how do you react to such a situation in a very quick time? So we were in a situation where the demand was at its peak in most of our portfolios, but on the external front, we were encountering pretty much everything possibly negative around people who were obviously infected in large numbers, because sales obviously has a huge army in numeric versus any other vertical. So that obviously was a huge challenge to overcome, compounded by the fact that there were multiple towns, areas in lockdown situation. How do you overcome that? And then when you've already been taught that success about sales entails distributing every part of your portfolio at the point of purchase and in the visible presence, when those things stop happening because of the externality change, then how do you react? Those are the typical challenges that were there in the pandemic period. And then we had to pick and choose. How do we reach out? How do we ensure that our consumers either are consuming more, or we are trying to reach out to the best possible place, which is functional? And for that, it entailed a large amount of stakeholder management with supply, services, with people on ground, keeping them highly motivated in a very difficult kind of external environment. Also, the pandemic taught us the value of technology. In sales, we sometimes believe that meeting physically is the only way to kind of accelerate your objective, meeting its realistic outcome. Then suddenly the whole Zoom meetings and the MS Teams came over, and then now we know that even if it's like in a normal kind of an environment, if you have to drive one single objective in a matter of seconds, we can all get together in a virtual space. So there are multiple things that changed for us, and obviously a lot for the better.
Lovely. Kirtiman, I'll move to you now. We all hear that the world is shifting. Digital marketing is, at the forefront. People are using it left, right, and center. Companies are putting in lakhs and lakhs of money on that. What exactly, do you do as somebody who's responsible for creating such amazing campaigns and the kind of effect that it had during the pandemic, and how did you shift or change your strategies?
So during the pandemic, we've seen a paradigm shift when it comes to digital consumption. Almost 30 to 40% increase is something that we've seen in digital consumption globally. So putting this in context, TV, which is the biggest and the conventional mode media, is degrowing by 6 to 7%, whereas digital consumption is growing by 30 to 40%. Over $1 trillion was spent on online purchases only last year. Along with that, you see there are so many people getting into gaming, getting into online groceries, and 3 out of 4 people in online groceries feel that they might not go back to the conventional modes. So that is the kind of shift we've seen the pandemic. And if more and more people are there online, more and more people are consuming more and more content, it makes us very obvious for every brand to be there. For a brand like Durex, the biggest objective here when it comes to the kind of social media content that you see with, on Durex, the kind of posts we do on Instagram, is normalizing conversations around sexual well-being. In India, where conversations around sexual well-being are a taboo, we make sure that we try to piggyback on every conversation people are talking about, try to give it a nice, witty, and a humorous Durex spin so that people have conversations around sexual well-being easily. So with that objective, we started real-time marketing with Durex. And that's been running successfully since the past few years. And obviously, we've seen a great increase in the sales numbers that you see for Durex as well.
Right. Thank you very much, guys. On this note, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a couple of quick audience questions that has come up. A lot of questions have come in through the YouTube chat. Okay. One quick question is by Shomnath is asking, do product management, program management comes under the umbrella of sales and marketing domains? Is there any connection? Anybody who wants to take this?
Yes. Product management is actually pretty much the word that is used for kind of brand managers in the world of technology, by and large. So very much within the ambit of what I spoke about. Of course, possibly in the tech firms, it's significantly more backward integrated with the technology of the product per se as well, right? But all of the facets that I spoke about hold true. Yes.
Right. Ankita, I have a specific question for you. Rui Singh is asking, what are the areas that a fresher needs to be prepared with to get into FMCG much before she lands on campus?
See, we don't, I think, what's important to know here is we are not looking for, we're looking for a certain type of people within the FMCG industry, right? I mean, and FMCG has been one of the longest, if you go back historically, possibly the oldest, one of the oldest industries in, operating in the business world, if I may say so. If you go back and look at our positioning, most FMCG organizations will take up a day zero slot, which definitely then means that we're looking to employ the best and the top talent in the industry. And I can't comment for the other companies, but I can definitely say for Reckitt, FMCG has been the feeder for some of these newer industries that are coming in because of the grounding that FMCG gives you, be it in sales, be it in marketing, be it in any function that you look at. Specifically for Reckitt, we are focused on getting the top talent, the creme de la creme, if you may say so, of the campus. Somebody who comes in with intellectual prowess, has the interest and inclination to build their career in an organization which has such massive brands. And I'm focusing on the word interest and, inclination because it's very important. Not every day will be easy. When you maybe have to go in the field and, do a sales role, it might not be easy. There might be challenges and it's not going to be easy. And I'm sure there are better people in this call to talk about their experiences to add to it. And that is where interest and inclination comes in deeply. We're looking for go-getters, people who are, very focused in their learning agility. They are able to learn quickly and deliver on, what is there to be done. So it's not everybody's cup of tea. And I would definitely say that. It's a very, very evolving space. Kirtiman just talked about what just these last 3 years have done to the industry. So it's a fabulously evolving space here. What we're looking for are the people who come with the right fit when it comes to all of these things. we're not essentially looking for someone who can, you can't read a few extra pages of a book and possibly be better. We are looking for people for their attitude and for the intellectual prowess that they get to the table.
Right. At this point, I would like to mention to the audience here who's listening, who's asking questions, keep them coming, keep asking these questions, and we might take up as many as possible questions from these people. Answers will be given. But before that, I would like to share something with you guys that is the kind of surprise that I was talking about. This is the question that we have for you. There's a Soar Beyond quiz that is part of this particular exercise that we are going to do. What Soar Beyond quiz is definitely going to do is help you in understanding the world of marketing and sales a little better, and help you in the whole process of getting through that we are here for. So do check that out. Download the Campus app. The quiz will be made live at around 7:15 once this particular webinar ends. So definitely do go there and check out the quiz. Okay, moving on. Let's get back to the conversation that we were having. Some time back, we discussed about the kind of effects and changes that COVID made, how you guys came up with strategies that change things. Vishal, I'll come to you now. We talk about data like we understand everything, and we know these buzzwords called data analytics, big data, mining, and new things being cryptocurrency and NFTs. So a lot of times we don't even understand what we are talking about, but we do because we see that to be cool and we want to be part of the herd. So, this is definitely not the case. We don't know data as much as we should be. So how does data and analytics help in getting consumer insights, and how does that help in driving sales? If you can simplify that to our audiences today, it would be great.
Absolutely. But just to begin with, I would just refer back to what Shweta talked about, the left brain plus right brain combination, right? So getting to insights on a business is as much about data analysis itself, as much as like how do you integrate the insights that you're getting there with your business gut that you've developed over the years, or with some qualitative learnings on what consumers are trying to tell you, either via a discussion or via simple observation techniques that we use. So decision making is not just about data, but applying integrative thinking across all these multiple data sources that come our way, right? Specifically on the data, it's often said that you beat data enough, it will talk any story that you want to talk. So what we try to do, like first, how do we collect the data, right? So there are tons of data sources that we get. There are some syndicated panels of stores or of households which keep a track of what is getting consumed in a household or what is getting sold out of a store. And all that data aggregates to how's the category doing, how are different players doing, right? Then there are other data sources where we have quantitative surveys run with consumers to try and understand like certain behaviors or choices that they are making. There are data sources on brand health that also feed in continuous information. So like you said, there are these multiple data sources, but the way we try to make sense out of it is a very simple analysis via hypothesis framework. So you don't jump straight into the data, but you apply your business understanding and the understanding of your own brand's business model to try and come up with a set of hypotheses on what might be leading to the outcome that you're seeing in terms of a purchase behavior, right?
Vishal, I have a small request. If you can, simplify this with an example that something happened and then that showed you results, if that can be done.
Absolutely. So for example, Dettol as a business, okay, there is a very different behavior we see when it comes to, say, north of India versus south of India, right? And the shares are very different. The category developments are very different, right? So when we want to answer this particular question on what could be leading to that, instead of jumping head first into data, what we try to do is list down a set of hypotheses, right? So for example, is my awareness of my brand same in both the places. Then you can break it down further to say, hey, is it the quantity of media spend that I do and the GRPs that I air in these geographies, or is it something to do with my quality of the message that I'm talking? When it comes to quality of message, is comprehension of the message an issue, or people understand the message, but they don't relate to the message, right? So you break it down like that. Similarly, for distribution, you could break it further like that. And then what you do is then you go and look for specific data sets in your data set which will either validate or invalidate the hypothesis. So you make the hypothesis in a way that they're collectively exhaustive but mutually exclusive to each other. And then you use your data sets to try and validate what these hypothesis is telling, what the data is telling you in terms of the hypothesis is true or false. And then you follow this tree and you will reach some conclusions that this data is telling you, right? That's like, how do you make sense of complex data sets? Then you combine this with the bunch of other information sources that come your way, and together they form into an insights on what's happening and what actions you should take as a brand.
Right. Kirtiman, since Vishal was talking about data, and since, we understood the importance of it, I'm sure you are also dealing with a lot of data on a daily basis when you're making these decisions and choices, in your digital marketing. How can digital marketing help in brand building and advertising, keeping the data in mind, keeping the kind of, visuals in mind that you get about a particular product, about a particular brand? And because we are in the changing world, because we are looking at internet and we are looking at Web 3.0, for example, say, simplify this to me, how would you market your products on a metaverse? Kirtiman, are you there? I think they've lost him. Okay, we'll wait for Kirtiman to join again. Shweta, I'll come to you. We are talking about brands. We're talking about how journey starts for a particular individual from there. I think Kirtiman is back. So,
I'm sorry.
Kirtiman, can you hear me? Did you hear my question?
I did not. I'm sorry. My internet is acting up.
Right. So, Kirtiman, I was saying that, since we are talking about data, and data is something that you definitely must be using on a daily basis, right?
Yeah.
And it helps you in making decisions when we're talking about digital marketing. And when we are talking about digital marketing and internet in general, we're talking about Web 3.0, we're talking about newer things coming in. So if I have to ask you, say, for example, how would you market your products on Metaverse? What would be your answer? And how can you build, can you use digital marketing to help build your brands or, do advertising with product?
See, starting with data, obviously, it's extremely crucial. At Reckitt, we do employ data at every decision that we take, starting with digital marketing itself. The kind of consumer data that we have and the kind of consumer data that we leverage for all our marketing campaigns is immense. The kind of signals that we get back, we do employ them to make sure that we make right decisions in our campaigns. Talking about new buzzwords that are in the market, Web 3.0, NFTs, Metaverse. See, to understand Web 3.0, we should actually start with Web 1.0 and Web 2.0, where in the 1990s, where Web 1.0 started, the most fundamental form of internet. Then by 2004, Web 2.0 came in, social media came in, people started interacting, sharing user feedback. And now we got Web 3.0, the latest form, where it's completely decentralized. We got concepts like blockchain, where there is no particular organization or nobody in the backend controlling the complete internet. So now that we have a whole parallel environment, a whole parallel universe by the name of Metaverse that's going on, and users globally are getting onto Metaverse. They're making purchases on Metaverse. And this might sound new, but it's not as new, because even a couple of years back when we were playing games on the internet, people on Fortnite were making purchases, they were buying weapons. These are all NFTs. And now they've just taken a more formal route. So brands have started leveraging Metaverse. Now we see stores, H&M has opened the stores. We got Nike selling shoes. We got Gucci selling bags on Roblox worth of thousands of dollars. So as more and more people come to Metaverse, brands have to own the space. They have to be present there in a different form. So retail brands might open a store. the other brands might take other spaces. So brands is extremely eminent to be a part of that space.
Right. And is Kirtiman excited?
Totally excited. We are already exploring NFTs for the new launches. We're totally excited.
Lovely. Great. From there to you, Shweta, I wanted to ask this question after I talked to Kirtiman, because, he talked about brands and you work with building these brands, and building these brands have become severely important in today's world, whether it's personal brand building or it's the brand building for a particular company. It's of utmost importance, right? So what should be an ideal strategy for brand managers to, achieve that result in such a world which is so much cluttered and, everybody is vying for that piece of attention?
Sure, I think that's a very interesting question, and thank you, Paul, for that. But before that I answer that, I just want to make a comment on your previous question, where you stated that how do you build brands through digital marketing, blah, blah, blah. I think there's a bit of a fallacy that, it's kind of, it happens in isolation. I think Vishal also touched upon it, but the truth is you really fish where the fish are. I mean, if you're selling hip hop sneakers, you've got to be where those consumers are. Now, whether that's digital or it's retail or it is, I don't know, under the banyan tree, it is where it is. And hence, I think it's very important to appreciate that the basic tenets of marketing don't change. It might evolve from just doing a TV commercial 10 years back to repurpose television for digital, Facebook today, 5 years back to today creating for digital. I think Kirtiman will agree with me, but the point is because consumers are there, right? And hence it's not isolated. I think the point is the starting point stays the same. You have a proposition which caters to a certain need. Then you go seeking where these people are, your bang on bullseye TG, and you go there with the right, kind of media vehicle, speak to them in their language, etc. So I think it doesn't operate in silos is important for you to appreciate. Like it's not that I do some, I don't know who brand management and tell Kirtiman now, do something about it in metaverse. No, it's blurred. It's quite blurred really, right? There's a proposition. I go where the fish are, where my consumers are. And then, you kind of tailor make it. And of course, he's the expert of the domain. So he comes up with 1,000 brilliant ideas to do it. But the point I'm trying to make is that the basic tenets of how you did marketing 15 years back and today, in my opinion, don't change. Of course, how it possibly comes to life, how as marketers, when I started my career in 2011, to today, how I really need to up the ante on technology, on digital marketing, on analytics has gone up significantly. Yeah. Okay, coming to the question you asked. Paul, in my view, more than ever now, given the kind of commoditization we're seeing, I mean, if you talk about disinfection categories, Vishal spoke about it really, it's extremely, extremely crucial to kind of do holistic, strong brand building, right?
Right.
And in my opinion, over the last 7-8 years, what I've learned, I think there are really two tenets of great brands succeeding in the future, right? The first, I have this very firm belief that purposeful brand building and profitable business goes hand in hand.
Right.
A lot of people believe that, purpose is this thing that happens on the side where it's nice to win awards and kind of put on LinkedIn, but it doesn't do much for business. I couldn't disagree more. And I think there are a zillion examples around us, and it links back to what you asked with the kind of commoditization that's happening. When 5 years back, I had 3 choices. Today, I have 300. What you stand for becomes even more important,
Right.
because people don't buy into just the soap or just the bar wash, right? It's the story behind what it does to your life is why it's a brand. Otherwise, you would buy something at half the price, literally, right? So I think the first is purposeful brand building, which of course links back to your product, your brand. It can't be, okay, just a higher cost benefit, which you talk about, it has nothing to do with your product. So I think one is that, and hence truly embracing and internalizing it, not as a fad. There's a big distinction because in my view, 90% are doing it just for the heck of it. There are quite a few who get it right. But once you get it right, it lasts. And there's enough and more empirical evidence to suggest that, and the second really is, and Kirtiman touched upon it really, is the pace at which digital marketing has kind of just revolutionized, everything. So I think really appreciating that, upping the game on your own understanding of how consumers view content now, where are they really sitting, etc., becomes extremely, extremely crucial, right? And hence, I think the overarching theme for me is from mass marketing, which is one too many. I tell the story I want to tell to 1 million people, to personalized precision marketing at scale, which is what technology is able to do, right? I mean, you can really have tailor-made creators for Paul, for Ankita, for Vaibhav, for Kirtiman, at the same time on their devices on Instagram, right? So really precision marketing at scale is the journey that good brand managers need to embrace in all their entity, right? To summarize, it was a long answer. Purpose and being truly digitally native is my
Lovely.
question.
Lovely. Thank you very much for the answer, Shweta. Although it was long, but it was definitely on point. Vaibhav, I'll move to you now. Vaibhav, you have been doing this for a long time. You have seen the change, as people are mentioning, in sales also. Right now, when somebody is getting into the world of sales, somebody is thinking that, okay, I want to make a career in there. What sort of thing that they should be keeping in mind in terms of how the sales have changed? And in your perception, what should be the right pitch in front of the panelists? If somebody says that, I am intrigued and I want to make a career in sales, how should that be?
Okay, I'll try and break it down in 3 parts. One, I would be epitomizing the longevity in one company, because you've stressed upon the fact that I've been working a lot for a lot of time, for quite a few times. I think one, what has been the personal journey so far has been superlatively interesting, simply because including my management trainee stint, this is my 7th role that I'm doing in the last 11 or so odd years, which means that I've gotten a flavor and exposure that I don't think any other industry, any company in FMCG environment would have given me. Now, is that a norm in the industry? Maybe not. Do we superlatively appreciate very good performance? Yes, we are surrounded by some supremely motivated and passionate people around us, which obviously keeps us kicking. Now, the second part of the question, what has changed over a period of time in sales systems? It has had a dramatic shift, Paul. When I joined in a decade back, we were a very specific portfolio-focused company in a very traditional trade environment, which was obviously more profitable for the company. But in that kind of environment, you couldn't really innovate and sell a more consumer-driven, a more higher-priced, something that appeals to the changing dynamics of what the social strata of the society was going through. Then what came? What changed? What came in was a huge amount of modern trade, retail landscape, and cash and carry landscape change for sales. And we took our own sweet time to understand that. Obviously, people had to be trained, groomed. That was a big jump shift in the entire way sales was functioning, because when you work with bigger and more affluent clients, you have to, one, obviously take care of the profitability of the company, because they demand more investments, they demand more focus, etc. But in the same breath, you also had a massive positive outflow coming in terms of driving some very high priced SKUs, some bigger brands, and bigger volume overdrivers, and of course e-commerce, which has been like the big change in the last 5 years. Who would have thought the Amazons and Flipkarts of the world would become as important as they are now? I mean, when we launched Durex condoms in 7 to 8 years back, we've just had pharmacies to sell to. And then we kind of always knew that it'll be under price control, and there'll be sentiments attached that, people won't be very keen to buy it because of those kind of sentiments around with the sexual well-being category. And then came Amazon, where, you drop of a hat, you can just ask for on a click of a button, you can order Durex, sexual well-beings, and all those categories. So the entire, it has kind of coincided. One, I mean, Shweta and Vishal can argue that it happened because, there was a changing dynamics in the external setup. I, being from sales, can argue that these guys came up, and then, companies started strategizing very differently. So these are the very different environment that we've seen over the last 10 years in the sales system. So yeah, I mean, ever changing. And for a panelist, to the third question that you asked, what would I give you a tip for? I see there are two, from a sales perspective, we obviously have executives and managers now that we are speaking to the very affluent B school candidates having expectations of joining a good, nice FMCG. Ankita touched base. Ankita said, if you remember, we like people with good attitude. If you've read one book more versus the other guy, I don't think you are necessarily going to be preferred. While saying that, I think she was mentioning me. she had me in her mind. But you have to be very, very flexible in putting all your theories. I mean, you could read all your 4Ps, 7Ps of the word, but when you have to apply all those theories in the real life, that is what you have to convince your possible interviewers or the panelists when you appear for the interviews. You have to be internally very sure that for the lack of any other word, love thriving in a bit of a chaotic environment to begin with, because a lot of things step change when you join an industry. Being in MBA school, working in a very closed inward environment versus working in a very detailed delivery demanding environment can obviously have a bit of a culture change. So you have to now start working towards the fact that you work on timelines. You have to work with a lot of people around. You have to ensure that the panelists also understand your innate behavior of trying to get work done by every kind of person. I mean, somebody could be intellectually very, very powerful. Somebody could be emotionally very, flexible, and you have to then press in the right button. So those are the few things to begin with. Obviously, as you go along in the career, like I have, like Shweta has, Vishal has, you also develop functional domain knowledge, and then you kind of understand wherever your preferences are. You could have a great career in sales. You could move to marketing, and then and you could be a channel expert, etc., etc. So that happens as you go along, maybe in 3 to 4 years while you join.
Absolutely. And Vaibhav touched base on this. Ankit, I would like to ask this to you. How do you make sure that you build that right culture for people to work in here?
I'm glad you asked this question. I think Reckitt for us, Reckitt has this very unique culture, a culture that's rooted in sustained outperformance. I think Vaibhav talked about it, Shweta, Vishal, everybody talked about it. And this is a legacy that's coming from, a 200-year-old history. It's not something that got built in a day. For us, I think the way we look at it, at the heart of everything is our compass, and our compass is like our guiding light. It's our North Star. And it's at the core of everything we do, right? Our culture, and then from there on, it kind of evolves into giving our employees the freedom to succeed. And I know this might sound like a lot of English out there, but I'll simply break it down for you. We are a bunch of entrepreneurs, the way we look at it. In Reckitt, we say a lot of things, and some of these things are fail fast, fail well, and bring your learnings from it. We talk about that there could be 20 ways to reach a place, and as an entrepreneur, you have the liberty, you have the freedom to define how you want to do it, as long as it's all making sure it's by the right way. The compass for us is what is driving our strategy, our purpose, the work that we do. But it's also helping us create an ecosystem where entrepreneurs pretty much entrepreneurs thrive. If you look at, anybody, you pick out anybody within Reckitt, everybody is doing a role that maybe their peers in another organization would not be doing at this age or this stage. We take bets on people. We like to take bets on people. And that is what truly defines the culture that we operate in. It's not easy. It doesn't come in a day. It's something that got built over a long period of time, but it is at the heart of everything that we do.
Right. Lovely. Vishal, I'll move to you now. Quick question for you. We were talking about the kind of skills, the kind of learning, the kind of tools that students need and is absolutely necessary in today's world to nail it. What do you think marketers of today should acquire these skills and tools that I mentioned, and how do they go about it?
Sure. I'll mention a few skills. They might have an insights angle to it. So I'll request Shweta to also build on, like, from a holistic marketing point of view. But I think I would advise a few things. Right? First is just the opportunity to experience these things themselves. Right. So whether it's about thinking about a problem that the brand has to solve, or whether it's about trying to understand insights from consumer standpoint on what their needs are, what the challenges are, and so on. Internships or even via academic projects where you have an opportunity to look at a problem from a brand's perspective and try to solve for it. Don't let go of that opportunities. During my time in IIM Calcutta, some of the best skills I acquired on how to think in a structured way, or how to talk to consumers and try to get to unstated insights as well, were from those projects where I went in with like make our hands dirty and do it yourself, right? So experience will give you a flavor of how it is in the real life as well. The second is, I would suggest there are a bunch of tools available which are freely available as well. So for example, Google Trends is a very good tool to just understand what the sentiments are around the country, right?
Right.
There are databases like Euromonitor or Mintel that are available freely to a lot of institutes, and all the student bodies of those institutes have access to these. These give a very good understanding on different categories, market landscapes, and where it is heading, right? The likes of Nielsen, etc., also release reports on how FMCG is doing, how consumption is moving. So those build a very good understanding on what's happening in the market as well. And then the third advice is learning up via courses. Now, there are a lot of digital options to learn as well, whether it's about digital marketing, whether it's about understanding behavioral science as a technique to get to insights and understanding of a human brain and the subsequent choices it drives. So these are multiple ways in which you could acquire some of these skills apart from all the academic support you get on these topics.
Right. Right. Shweta, you want to add on to something on that? Yeah, go ahead, please.
I just want to add, 3 small things really. So the first, I think, and which has always stood me in good stead, is the fact that you should stay curious. I think some of what Vishal spoke about also links back to that, because you should try and unpeel the onion really, right? Because what he spoke about, how to ladder from an observation to insight, it's not magic, and hence at least 3 whys on every problem that you're trying to solve really is a thumb rule. I think don't stop. And I think especially once you begin whatever journey you begin in your career, people tend to lose that. You think this is how the world, these are the ways of the world, etc. I think to push the envelope and really challenge the status quo, sometimes it is important to kind of keep that curiosity going. Yeah. And one small example, very doable for all of you, for example, is you would see a lot of advertisements, whether on YouTube or on the little television you guys would consume. Or just, search for great ads on YouTube really, and try and understand why did they do it? What was the business challenge? Because I kid you not, it's 30 seconds, which you spend possibly 30 lakhs for a 20-second spot, 30-second spot, right? Like the biggest chunk of working media monies goes behind these platforms, right? And hence communication is how you deliver that message. So try and understand what was the business reason why it was done, right? And then maybe reach out to somebody who works on those categories, etc. Because I think that'll really explain a lot of the gaps in between, right? Because it didn't happen by accident. It doesn't look the way it does just because the director thought that, right? And I think that's a very practical way of doing it. And then the second is, I have a very firm belief, and I think Vaibhav touched upon it, that attitude definitely trumps aptitude in the long run. So you got to have a go-getter's aptitude, attitude, be open to learning. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it,
Right. Shweta, some time back in your answer, you were mentioning, how audiences, how consumers, they relate themselves with the brand with the kind of messaging that the brand puts out, or the kind of brand themselves they are, right? For you, any sort of such brand journeys, or for others in the panel that I have today, which showed the kind of responsibility that Reckitt has also taken, both in terms of sustainability, both in terms of giving back to the society. What are some of these campaigns that you've been part of, and how do you associate yourself with that?
Sure. Thank you, and that's a wonderful question again, Paul. So I think one example that all of my colleagues and anybody who's worked on Reckitt India would be the entire work that's done on our flagship purpose program, now Banega, Swasth India. It started in 2014 as Banega Swachh India. It was led by Dettol, of course, our marquee brand. and kind of co-sponsored by Harpic, our second largest brand, right? Now, you guys are young, but not that young. If you would remember, our Prime Minister, when he came to power in 2014, he gave the clarion call of Swachhata, really, right? Cleanliness is bigger than godliness, etc. And for the first time, there was this collective impetus on, sanitation and cleanliness, really. And you see how the macro context really made it the perfect anchor for our story, right? Because it was the clarion call given by the Prime Minister. He promised he's going to construct 100 million toilets in the country over the next 5 years, besides a lot of behavior change work. And that is when we started Banega Swachh India. It ties in perfectly to our brands, right? Dettol, the gold standard in disinfection, really the king of disinfection, protecting lives and breaking the chain of infection. Harpic, the gold standard in sanitation and toilet cleaning and bathroom cleaning, really. And then how, look at the journey. So for 5 years it was that. And in 2019, it seamlessly, metamorphosized into what you see today, which is the Banega Swasth India campaign that Dettol does, right? So if you see the link from Swachh to Swasth, because hygiene is the bedrock of good health, right? And you started this in 2019. Of course, you have almost 100-year-old legacy in this country, but how it perfectly anchors to everything Dettol does, really, right? And I think really living the purpose in the smallest of touch points with your consumers, whether it is what you do on, mass advertising on TV, the touch points you have on digital, the direct to consumer work you did, the websites that you have, how you interact on e-commerce, even your packs. I don't know, those of you would have seen. On Dettol, we did these limited edition liquid hand wash packs, wherein we celebrated and really paid respect to a lot of the COVID warriors, last year. And again, this ties in beautifully to the purpose of the brand, right? Which brings back to what I mentioned. Number one, and you can trust us for that, Dettol is extremely profitable and doing very well. So purposeful business making is perfectly compatible with profitable business, right? And number two, how if you get your purpose aspect right, because that's the role you can really play in your consumer's life, it lasts. Because like I said, what I mentioned as an example, we started a journey in 2014, and it's still continuing very, very strongly, really.
Right. Any such, challenging or satisfying brand experience or stories that you have, Kirtiman, that you want to, put forth or mention here?
So one of the biggest challenges, and I actually hinted that earlier as well, was with Durex. Now, in a country where people don't even talk about conversations, or don't even have conversations around sexual well-being, it's a taboo. You can't even, amongst your friends, you actually frown upon. So how do you open up those conversations? And it's extremely, extremely eminent to have those conversations so that your lives in a sexual well-being context are better. So that's what we aimed with Durex. We wanted people to talk about all these things. And we actually succeeded. A lot of people, when you look at our handles, they engage with conversations around sexual well-being. So that's one challenge that we had. And that's an ever-evolving challenge. We've started making people talk about it. Now we want more and more people to engage about it. That's one particular challenge.
Right. Lovely. Ankita, I'll move to you now. There are a lot of people who have asked these questions also, and I'm bunching them together because, we have very little time at our hands. First up, I would ask you, what is that Reckitt is looking for in their Soar Beyond Summer internship program? What is the kind of people that you're looking for? And when we're talking about these budding sales and marketing talents, where exactly, do you think the secret sauce lie for them?
Okay, so I think simply put, we are looking for the best-in-class talent. That's what Reckitt is known for. We have the best-in-class talent in the industry. And it's a rigorous process of getting into Reckitt as a part of the program. It's not going to be easy. Of course, academic excellence and intellectual prowess is at the base of everything. But more than that, we're actually betting for future here. We're betting for people who can potentially be leaders within the organization. Our program is almost 29 years old this year. So 29 years of creating leaders, right? Or who've been holding, big roles within the organization as well as outside globally. So our proposition is actually to bet on people and groom them, create the solid foundation. And to say that we are definitely going to be very, very careful when we are looking at and meeting people as well. My advice would be very simple. Commit to it, be resilient. It's not going to be an easy journey, and a career is never very easy. You have to do your research and you have to be very, very clear about why you're taking this up. You have to get in for the long run, not for a short stint. And like I said, I mean, FMCG industry has been the powerhouse of talent for a very long time. And Reckitt amongst that has been, a powerhouse itself. So then automatically, if you're coming in, you have to understand that we are creating foundations for these people. We want to create foundations and solid foundations and not not be here as well from a very short-term perspective. So then, invest in yourself. And of course, the company will invest disproportionately back in you. So that's just my 2 nuggets of
Lovely.
on this.
Last piece of advice from all of you. I'll start off with Vishal and I'll conclude with you, Vaibhav. We'll go from Vishal to Shweta to Kirtiman to Vaibhav.
Specific question or?
No, so last piece of advice for those who are going to be part of a B school journey, making their careers, understanding how they should be taking their career ahead.
See, like I said, like be curious, like Shweta said, experience different options, right? Whether it's internships, whether it's projects, whether it's case competitions. Try to get the feel of how companies might be thinking about these business problems. And then I think just from a Reckitt standpoint, there are 2 specific areas which will also, like, irrespective of where you end up, will also help you. One is just like be ambitious, set big goals and work towards them, and have the energy to go after them. That's it. So I think, yeah.
Super. Shweta.
So first things first, once you get in the campus that you desire to, and I hope all of you do, please have a ball. For most of you, it will be the last 2 years of really studying, right? So have the time of your life. I'm telling you, like Vaibhav touched upon it, 1 more book, 5 more books don't matter really, very, very honestly. And in my opinion, with all due respect to every campus, of course, I think the most important thing that you learn out of B school is networking, is those relationships for life. And when I say networking, I don't mean like, suck up to the right people so that they get you to the right places, not at all. Making friends for life. So do that, have a blast at campus. And now, of course, the more, slightly more serious advice. I spoke about it. I can't overemphasize. You should stay a student for life. Don't lose your curiosity. I always believe that your best is good enough. So as long as you're putting in your best, it's good enough. Don't have unnecessary relativity barriers. Your career is a marathon. It's not a relay race. And you'll realize that 3-4 years after working. Possibly some of you have already worked. I think you should take chances, be bold, stay hungry, stay foolish, and take chances, because that is when disproportionate growth happens. Yeah. And lastly, in my opinion, you should definitely pursue some passions beyond work as well. I think they make the entire journey much more holistic. You'll realize that. So those are my 2. Possibly some of you already work.
Kirtiman?
I think you should take chances, be bold, stay hungry, stay foolish, and take chances.
There's a slight bit of echo in the background. Is it just for me?
I think somebody is kept the gear on. So if you can switch it off, the YouTube is on somewhere.
I think they make the entire journey much more holistic. You'll realize that.
Vaibhav, can you go on mute, please? Kirtiman, is it?
Slight bit of echo in the background.
Yeah. Is it from your system? Can you check, please?
I don't have YouTube on. So.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead, Kirtiman. I think so.
Perfect. So, see, the next 1 or 2 years of your life, and if you're in B school right now, or if you're joining B school, they're going to be the best years of your life. I remember my 2 years as one of the parts of my life that I cherish the most. So as Shweta said, have fun. It's extremely important. Do not just take your your B School as a consulting an activity where you just come to get a job. It's got way more to offer. Obviously, getting a job is important, and I'm sure you've got monetary obligations later, but it has way more to offer. Make sure, make the right connections, keep your eyes and ears open. Even if you want to learn, there's marketing all around you. The products you buy, even if you're surfing on social media platforms or on Instagram, make sure, keep your eyes and ears open and build great contacts. So just have fun and make sure that you're learning constantly.
Great. Vaibhav, last words.
Yeah, sometimes going last runs the risk of being slightly repetitive to a common question. I'll try and not be as repetitive as possible. Obviously, like everybody said, have a ball. In the next 2 years, they will never come back in your life, and I can promise you that. But do remember, you have educational loans to pay back after completing those 2 years. So don't forget that. There are two things that I would want everybody to do. One is the fact that some of these case studies, when you take up, you work in a group. You might not appreciate the importance of those kind of case studies and working in a group while you're doing that, because you're doing that not necessarily for a productive business outcome or has no money or financial connotations attached to it. What it teaches you, one is working around with different type of individuals that will come in very handy when you join a corporate setup or a field setup. Two, also keep thinking while you're doing that, to keep pushing yourself to think what is not very obvious, because what is obvious is pretty much right there in front of you. And those are the times that you'll come up with certain disruptive solutions, and which is why everybody said we keep being curious, which everybody is asking you all to keep pushing the envelope as much as possible in those case studies. Two, involve yourself in those committees. They are not faff. They teach you a lot. They teach you a lot of leadership skills in a very smaller kind of setup and a scale. You deal with a lot of people up in the corporate. If you're working in a campus selection committee or I can name a few more. But then do attach equal importance to that while you're getting graduated academically. So those are the only 2 cents. And like everybody said, have a ball.
Lovely. Thank you very much, all of you, for taking out your time and giving this detailed sort of a narrative around the B School life. If you guys want to know more about how you can crack the GDPI round, the WAT-PI rounds that are going to be part of your B School selection, there's a quiz that we have in store for you as well. You can go on the campus app, download the campus app, and the quiz must be live now. Immediately after this webinar, you can take that quiz. If you are joining in now, you can go through the webinar later, you can go through the webinar contents later, and you might find an answer or two for this particular quiz as well. On this note, thank you very much, all of you present here on the screen. Vishal, Ankita, Shweta, Vaibhav, and Kirtiman. It was nice having you guys here. It was nice knowing the Reckitt story, and I'm hopeful that some of the audience members who are listening today might get a perspective on the sales and marketing roles in life. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.